WALTHERing 2011 on TSN is brought to you by Quaker State, real durable oil, and Michelin, a better way forward.
One of the cool things about the Detroit Auto Show is it gives you the chance to see many concept vehicles. And this year, there was a lot of anticipation at the Honda booth with the 9th generation Civic concept being revealed. Unfortunately, the reaction was, well, shall we say, underwhelming. The design was hardly cutting edge and not much different from its predecessor. And the interior, well, there was no interior. As they said, they were still working on it. But hey, production models seldom resemble the concept, so there was still hope. Well, this week the cherry blossoms are blooming and spring is in the air in Washington, D.C., where journalists will finally get a chance to look at the new Civic. Now, of course, every new car launch is important, but for Honda, this one is huge. Over 54% of all vehicles sold in Canada are in this compact segment. And unlike past years, the rearview mirror on this car is simply crammed with competition, eager to topple the Civic as Canada's top-selling car.
This has obviously been Canada's best-selling car for 13 years, and we knew we had to nail this. There's been a lot of emphasis on this car, and the environment's gotten that much more competitive.
Because you have a winner in your hand, like you said, 13 years in a row, best-selling car in Canada, so you want to keep your core with you when you change the model. So they've, like Honda do with many of its models, it's an evolution.
It was only about 2.5 years ago, oil did hit almost $150 US a barrel. So fuel economy, as always with all Honda products, but took on that much more importance. So the product was really designed to improve fuel economy. And as you've seen, I think the team accomplished that.
What were you doing in 1996? Well, Graham Fletcher was test driving the brand new Honda Civic. And obviously today's car looks a lot better than yesterday's. However, put the 2012 beside the 2011, you don't see a big difference, which makes me wonder, did they push the design envelope enough?
They didn't really have to push an envelope, I don't think. I mean, they're in danger if you push an envelope too far of turning off the people that they already attract. And being the #1 seller for what, 13 years? They're doing something right.
It looks like the old one. They've changed a couple of things. It's more than driving than you see the difference.
We have carried over the 1.8 liter, but there have been a number of enhancements to that powertrain. So they were able to achieve a 12% improvement overall fuel economy on the automatic transmission. The SI, so it does have an all-new 2.4 liter i-VTEC engine, now boasting 201 horsepower and 170 pound-feet of torque.
Better sound deadening, and it feels a little lighter on the road, but on a good side. It feels a little peppier, it feels a little quicker, the handling is nice, and overall it is still a great value. And the good thing is they've lowered the base price a little, so you get a great car for around 15 grand base model.
The trunk on this new Civic is more than adequate for a compact car. Unfortunately, the back seats don't fold down. But you know what this car really needs that most of the competition already has? A hatchback.
No hatchback. We get that question a lot, but you know, we do have a coupe, which is unique, and we have a very loyal following with that vehicle, so we don't think things will change for 12.
They don't have a hatchback because there's a Honda Fit. If they put a hatchback there, they'll kill the Fit. That's, for me, it's the only reason. But you know what? I think I'd rather have a Civic hatchback, price it right, and it would take the market. It's the nicest looking model.
You know, Honda's predicting the new Civic will attract a lot of people from the baby boomer generation, which is 47 to 65. However, they're also hoping to see some people from the Y generation, 17 to 34. And boy, is that a distant memory. But you know, like the new cars we get every year, we're also seeing new and younger automotive journalists in this country, including one young gun who was definitely a capital Y.
I'm 28 years old. I learned how to drive standard on a Civic. Everybody in my family has owned one pretty much except me at one point or another. So this is pretty exciting. Growing up, we've had the older Civics. We ripped them apart, raced them, so on and so forth. Now, today, they're saying the new car is too many electronics, it's too heavy. The aftermarket's not quite what it used to be. It's more expensive. But I mean, you know, growing up, having kids and stuff, all the extra safety gear probably makes more sense for them too. So. You know, it shows itself as being a lot tighter, a lot more agile out there, and it should. It still, you know, loves to rev, loves to be pushed. That engine's in its comfort zone when it's working hard, and then the whole car just feels right being tossed around.
We're very aggressive, I think, with the content we've added to the vehicle and the overall pricing, and we still feel it's the best value in the market.
Competition is coming at a fast pace. Is it enough to keep the crown? I'm not sure.
What did the Beatles tell us about traffic management? Find out later on Kenzie's Corner.
The question is it hip to be square? On this edition of Test Drive, the Scion XB. A little under a year after landing in Canada, Toyota's sub-brand is beginning to make waves. Scion now counts 3 models, with a 4th, the IQ, arriving any day. When it comes to the XB, there is no mistaking its position in life. Its aim is to deliver the advantages of a utility vehicle without having to resort to a thirstier SUV. However, the comments on its ultra styling ran the gamut. Some loved it, and I admit to falling into this group. Others referred to it as a bread box on wheels. Ouch. The interior style is radically different. To begin with, all of the dials sit off to the right of the driver. Once you get used to it, it's very easy to live with. I don't care for the digital speedo, but that's grist for another mill. As for the radio, it's a bit convoluted and the buttons are small. However, the rest of it, well, it's actually done very nicely. The plastics are good, not great, but fairly good. The front seats are very comfortable, and there's a ton of space. When it comes to the handling, the XB is surprisingly accomplished, considering it uses a fairly basic suspension setup. Struts up front and a twist beam in the rear. When pushed, there is some initial body roll, but as soon as things take a set, the XB rides out a corner quite well. It certainly did better than expected through the pylons. The 205/55 R16 tyres deliver plenty of grip, and the steering has a connected feel. In fact, the only quibble is that the XB's slab-sided styling makes it susceptible to strong crosswinds. When you get to the back seat, there is an absolute ton of space back here. It's almost limo-like. Plenty of knee room. The seats sit well off the floor, so you've got somewhere to put your feet. And if you're a cowboy, well, you can wear your hat. The XB features the Camry's 2.4-litre 4-cylinder engine, which is a good thing. It delivers 158 horsepower and 168 pound-feet of torque. Typical of Toyota's engines, this one is the model of civility. It pulls strongly without ever becoming too noisy, at least when the XB is driven in a normal manner. Where the XB trips up is that it did not inherit Camry's automatic. Rather, it makes do with a 4-speed slush-o-matic. In a segment where 5 or 6 speeds are the norm, this puts the Scion at a competitive disadvantage. It's also reflected in the acceleration times. At 9.8 seconds to 100k and an 80 to 120 passing time of 7.9 seconds, the XB is not exactly a rocket. If you don't mind stirring your own gears, the 5-speed manual is the better transmission. When it comes to functionality, this Scion really does work. With the seats in the upright position, you get about 21 cubic feet of cargo space. However, drop them down, which is as simple as that, and you open up 69 cubic feet of cargo space. The important point being, all of the space is usable. The intrusions have been kept to a minimum, and that includes the shock towers. The XB earns Toyota's Star Safety System. It brings the benefits of 6 airbags, all the needed crush and crumple zones, tyre pressure monitoring, along with an advanced stability control system, traction control and anti-lock brakes. The latter proved to be up to the task of hauling almost 1,400 kilograms of box to a halt. Testing pegged the average stopping distance at 41 metres. Dynamically, there's nothing too special about this Scion XB. Indeed, that 4-speed automatic transmission actually makes it rather busy on the highway. However, if you're after stylistic functionality, well, it's all wrapped up in one not so small box. In that regard, I guess you could say it's hip to be square.
I know this is motoring television, but I got a few words of advice for you cyclists out there. Check it out at motoringtv.com.
He is not up at Honda levels or Toyota levels, but they're getting there and they're trying to prove it. And I mean, bringing the car to the racetrack and letting us drive it in this environment is a way to say, look, we're starting to really dive deep into these products and really execute them from the ground up.
The last time we saw a new Civic was in 2005. Now, normally the company makes a model changeover every 4 years, but it's taken them 6 years for this new 2012 edition, so obviously they put some thought into it. Now, this may come as a surprise to you, but our Bill Gardner, who of course loves pickup trucks, used to own a Civic. So Bill's had a bit of seat time in the new car, so let's see what Bill thinks of the new Honda from a mechanical point of view. How about it, Bill?
Yeah, Brad, you're right. I had a 91 Civic Si hatchback, and you know, as much as I love my pickup trucks, that car would get 3 times the fuel mileage of the pickup truck. So, you know, when I was going to Perry Sound to the cottage on the weekend and I didn't have any big cargo, guess which vehicle made the trip? It was an easy call. And, you know, fuel economy is a very important thing today. So this 9th generation of Civic, there's another strong selling feature right there. Now, they've sold 1.6 million Civics over 38 model years here in Canada. There's still 930,000 of them on the road today. This is the 9th generation model, and some of the features that I'm going to talk about under the hood of this car actually started in the previous generation Civic, and they're holdovers on this 1.8 liter engine that we're going to look at under the hood today. Now, Civics have always been easy to service, very durable, and if you believe in safety and numbers, there's another good reason to buy a Civic. There's just so darn many of them out there. It's just a win-win situation. Now, on the previous generation Civic, they eliminated the timing belt, and same on this engine. When you look at the front cover, you're looking at a cast aluminum piece, not that black plastic cover that used to cover the belt. So with the timing chain on this engine, it's a maintenance-free deal for life. Now, up here at the front of the cylinder head, we can see the manifold runners that are cast into the cylinder head, and they eliminate the exhaust manifold. There is no manifold on this engine. The catalytic converter bolts directly to the cylinder head, and the oxygen sensors and CAT are so close to the head, they get up to temperature really fast for very efficient operation. And so Canadian motorists are going to save a lot in terms of emissions and fuel economy by getting those engines up to temperature and keeping them there in the wintertime for maximum efficiency. Now, the Civic also uses direct ignition system, so the coils are mounted directly on the spark plugs, which means that the engine is quite easy to service. You can see that all I had to do here was unplug the ignition coil and one little screw. There's your entire secondary side of your ignition system. That's the ignition coil, an insulator, and the spark plug is clipped right or mounted right underneath this. No ignition wires, no distributor, very simple, straightforward, and reliable. One of the reasons that this engine is going to last so long in this Civic is that it uses full synthetic 0W20 motor oil. You know, when we started to see full synthetic motor oils, we saw them in Corvettes, Vipers, BMW, and Mercedes, high-end cars, expensive cars. Now a $14,000, $15,000 Civic has full synthetic motor oil in the crankcase. That's great engine protection, and when you're taking your car in for an oil change at one of the many great Canadian lube shops that we've got, you can ask them to upgrade to synthetic motor oil, and you'll get that extra protection and performance on your older car that you're getting on a brand new car like the 012 Civic. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2011.
Michelin, a better way forward.
Porsche Motorsports marked their return to Canada with the inaugural three-event Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge. The first event roared into effect earlier this year on a wet weekend in May at Calabogie Motorsports Park, east of Ottawa. Since 1986, the challenge has been raced on practically every continent, and thus inclusion of Canada's racing pedigree was a no-brainer for Porsche.
With the 944S, we had the first Cup series in Canada many years ago, and during the economic downfall in the early 90s, that series was discontinued. But there's a lot of racing heritage in Canada. There are a lot of race drivers in Canada who would like to join us and who have always banged the door and said, when are you coming back with a series?
What's so captivating about this Cup Challenge is that these drivers own what they race, making this a very expensive hobby.
Just the logistics of traveling to the States. We're down Sebring, Florida twice this year in February and March. We go down with a team of 4 people. You know, it's getting hotel accommodations, it's flying everyone there, it's getting the rig down there with the car, it's having all the proper equipment. It's going through Canada Customs and US Customs.
Well, you get personal trainers. It's very hot in the cockpit, over 150 degrees. Your heart rate, because the adrenaline's pumping all the time, can sustain at 190 beats per minute for up to 90 minutes. So you have to be in cardiovascular shape. So it's serious. Full engineering team, pro coaching, big investment, but the reward's there.
We're sponsoring the Porsche GT3 Cup Series here in Canada for the first time, and we're providing Michelin racing tires, so dry compound and also wet racing tires, which is perfect for a day like today. And we're also providing technical support. So we have a tire engineer that's working with the teams and making sure basically that they get the most out of their tires. The racing environment is such a perfect laboratory for us to test tires for street. For example, we just launched our Michelin Pilot Super Sport, and this is a tire that lasts up to twice as long as the competitor, and that's because we were able to learn from endurance racing.
Despite the weather conditions, the vanguard of the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada took to the track. And after a long day of racing, these guys still have to drive themselves home.
It's surreal. It's like you're sitting on your couch at home watching TV. There's no sense of speed or anything, and I think that after coming off the racetrack, you're really, your whole mind slows down. Everything slows down. You find yourself driving almost under the speed limit.
I drive a Chev Tahoe, nice and slowly on the street, I might add.
Well, I'm driving around a Ford Edge, so it's a lot of fun.
If I didn't have a day job, I wouldn't be racing, I can tell you that. No, I'm the CEO of a publicly traded mineral exploration company. I always tell people I'm working in a salt mine looking for a gold mine. So yeah, we work very hard to do what we do out here, for sure. Yes, it's competitive. Yes, we love to, mix it up on the track. But at the end of the day, it's about having fun and getting out and enjoying these fantastic cars.
Closed captioning of Motoring 2011 is brought to you by
Greener, fuel efficient, global. This is Chevrolet Now, driving our world forward.
Now, some of you younger viewers might not know that Paul McCartney was in a band before Wings. And don't ask me who Paul McCartney was. But the Beatles were ahead of their time in a lot of ways, including traffic management, because they sang, "If you want to drive, I'll tax the street." And that's what a lot of cities are doing. It started in London with a congestion charge. You want to drive downtown? you pay for the privilege. Now, I'm cheap, so I'm kind of anti-tax to begin with, but I got specific issues with this one. First of all, didn't our tax dollars pay to build those roads in the first place? We already own them, we got to pay to use them too? That doesn't seem right. Besides, everybody uses the roads whether they actually drive on them or not. How do the police cars and fire trucks and ambulances get to your house? I mean, roads are part of the infrastructure that our tax dollars pay for. We all benefit whether we actually drive on them or not. Now, these European cities that use these congestion charges, they were designed 800 years ago. They're all compact. You can pretty much walk everywhere you want to go. Most of them have wonderful subway systems and bus networks. We don't. We can't afford to charge people to come into town because there is no alternative. Besides, it's a subsidy to the rich. If you're living in your $28 million condo in Midtown Toronto, you can drive to the suburbs for free, get to the big box store. But if you live 60 kilometers out of town, because that's the only place you can afford, you got to pay to drive to your work. That's just not fair. Now, if these monies were being used to support the road network, I guess I can kind of see it. But no, they're going to use these taxes to build more subways. Well, wait a minute. If we have to pay to use the mass transit system of our choice, motorists, why don't subway riders have to pay for the mass transit system of their choice? Would you use subway fares to subsidize building of roads? Hardly. But you know, once bureaucrats focus their beady little eyes on your wallet, chances are we're beat. And the Beatles even covered that because they sang, "I'm the tax man and you're working for no one but me." I'm Jim Kenzie.
Now, what do I think of the new Honda Civic? Well, I'll be honest, I'm very disappointed in the design. After this many years, they could have pushed that design envelope much further than they did. I was also hoping for a 6-speed transmission, but with this new CVT, you don't find yourself searching for a 6th gear on the highway as you would in, let's say, the Honda Fit. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the competition is enormous, and the question is, can it take away the heavyweight belt from the Civic as Canada's best-selling car? Well, time will tell. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
This isn't a racing school out here. This is a performance driving school. It's not a defensive driving school. We're not having slaloms and accident avoidance. This is going to teach you how to drive your Jaguar car at the limit.
Motoring 2011 on TSN has been brought to you by Quaker State, Real Durable Oil, and Michelin, a better way forward.